Hello, Jesus, how are you?
I'm doing great.
We're here on a beach in Puerto Rico, apparently.
Yeah. We're here in the beach in Toronto with the Toronto Blue Jays and and with a Caribbean beach as well. So we
There you
have the
go.
best of both worlds today.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we've been, Jesus and I have been trying to get together to record video about, all of our favorite topics, which just in case you're not familiar is, one of them is RCM-R, which is reliability centered maintenance re-engineered, which, Jesus will explain to us what the difference is between traditional RCM and what RCM-R offers. But yeah, we couldn't help ourselves. We had to go to the beach. So this is our compensation for being in Southeast Virginia and in Toronto.
Yes, sir. It certainly is. But I feel like at home because I'm a Caribbean guy, and you are a Marine, a Navy type of person, so you feel like at home too. So nice,
Yeah,
nice setup.
yeah, and I think I spent most of my adult life in the Caribbean. So, I don't
Same
get
as,
to go there anymore.
same as me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Except in two wildly different ways, because you grew up in Puerto Rico, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I lived in Puerto Rico for close to, can I say that? Yeah, close to 50 years. And
Wow.
yes, I've been living here, I won't say how much, but how many years for a while here in Canada as well. So
Because we
people
start
don't,
adding the
yeah,
numbers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. People will start figuring out, my age, and that's not good.
Yeah.
So yes, I grew up there in Puerto Rico, and yes, I also studied there in Puerto Rico, worked for a while in a couple of pharma companies, and yeah, it's a wonderful place to be.
Well, and Jesus, I think one of the things that really impressed me about you when we first met, yeah, man, it was like 2 years ago, I think now, was just your uh, amazing ability to communicate with people in a way that it really does grab the audience, right? Whether it be because I met you, we were at I think we were at PMAC, we were doing the presentations.
Yeah,
We had
was
met
it?
on LinkedIn before that, but that was the first time I met you in person.
Yeah, that was in where was that, in Saskatchewan? No, it wasn't Saskatchewan. It was
We were in
in
Manitoba.
Manitoba. Yes, in
Yeah,
Manitoba.
Winnipeg.
Yes, and yeah, I had the great pleasure to know you and a couple of other us there. And yeah, since then we have been working together, exchanging ideas, having a lot of interesting conversations about reliability engineering, about LoRa, about RCM, about MTA, asset management, many, many things.
Yeah.
So it is wonderful that we can now speak here in this platform and also exchange our ideas here live, or let's say with our community.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Lucas, we have been looking for this for how long? A lot of time, and finally we can do it here
Yeah.
from the comfortability of the beach of the
That's
Caribbean.
right. Well, I was getting ready to give you a big pat on the back for speaking so many languages. You speak what, three or four languages?
Well, if you add them up together, they will make up one. But yes, I speak English and Spanish fluently. Spanish is my first language. I can do also Portuguese, and I can understand also French.
Wow. See, that's just
But
amazing to me.
my French is kind of rusty right now, so don't challenge me.
I'm back.
Yeah, live here. But yeah, I back in my university time, I took some classes of French, like 3 classes, and one of them was uh, really intense speaking, and I could manage to speak it very well. But that was some decades ago. Uh,
Yeah, that is just always fascinating to me when someone can get such a good grasp on a second or third language. That's just, that's amazing, and it's just it's super cool that you have that. I'm a little jealous. I took Spanish for 4 years, and I lost it within 4 years after not speaking it.
Well, I remember, Lucas, when I met you, that you said cerveza very well in Spanish. And yeah, there are a couple of words that you managed to pronounce neat in Spanish very well.
In Canada.
Yeah.
So for those that aren't familiar with this platform, we're trying to kick off like kind of a series. You know, there's tons of information out there about RCM, and there's tons of information about asset management and life cycle management. But I think the perspectives are getting washed out. I think some people are getting caught up in what's the latest and greatest thing to talk about with them. They lose sight of the fundamental applications. And part of that to me is aligning all of these like wonderful tools and methods and approaches with the life cycle of an asset. And I'm a little obsessed with life cycles and life cycle management. So, you know, my introduction to this stuff was through being a maintainer, you know, when I first started my career in the military. And then as I became an engineer and was working in more senior levels, then it was about life cycle management. And when I left the service, I was a little unsure of how the world outside of the military would view reliability center maintenance in relation to life cycles. So it's been fascinating to me in the last 2 years to learn more from people like you who are experts in the field at RCM about how the world of RCM is viewed outside of those really strict kind of rigid acquisition and military design circles. So if you know, I feel fortunate that I've got, you know, you to talk to, because you're obviously, you know, you've been doing this for quite some time. You're really good at it, and you've happened to establish a pretty good reputation for yourself. And I would love to get your perspective, and I'm sure everyone else would, about like, you know, RCM is hard, but it's worth it. And RCM is extremely valuable when you're applying it properly. And people tend to get stuck doing it in like one phase of a life cycle because of their job. So I don't think a lot of people understand the totality of RCM, how important RCM is to all of the life cycle. So I was hoping that maybe you could talk to me a little bit about, you know, the importance of RCM in the very beginning of a life cycle, like when you're in concept and even moving into like the design and development phase, you know, the role that RCM plays in that life cycle phase.
Yes, RCM has been blamed for many things. Some people, I remember when I took my very first RCM class, that was like 20 years ago. And the instructor told us RCM is known as the resource consuming monster, because it consumes, you know, all the resources, and this is a kind of a never ending analysis, you know, and people get stuck with that. You know, people think that, yes, this is something that it is not worthwhile because it will suck off all of your resources and you will never finish. And the thing is that there is something really interesting about RCM, and look, and this is about the timing that RCM was born, as the RCM was conceived. Now, it was conceived in the 60s and the 70s. So different perspective in the aviation industry. So, and also we didn't have the blessing by that time of knowing asset management, because asset management, you know, especially the standard ISO 55000 series, changed all the perspectives of maintenance, of operations, of you know, like designing. Everything changed, and now we all have to be working together, and all the what matters here is realizing the most value out of assets. So we needed to kind of reset ourselves. So reset the way we do RCM, reset the way we do design, the way we operate and we maintain. So we all have to talk to each other. And yes, RCM is a great tool. There is no better tool to produce failure consequence management policies. It is proven already. in all type of industries, and RCM was then moved to be tested in other industries, in the mines, in the power industry, in many others, and it was adopted because of the great results. There is no doubt that RCM is a great tool, but it has to be used wisely, and there are some pitfalls about it that make people not to obtain the optimal results when using it. And yes, there are RCM, has a great impact on design. If you used RCM in the very beginning, of the life cycle of assets, what it does is it will open your eyes on risk. And the thing is that even when we speak about risk, there are a lot of misconceptions about it. So nowadays, the asset management platform or concept has changed every perspective. All the perspectives have changed. The way we play now, it's a different game now. So when we speak about risk, Lucas, we have to, risk is about uncertainty to attain a goal, right? So we, reliability engineers, designers, have to be aware of the goals of that asset, of the goals of the, let's say, the industry or the company using those assets. What's the importance of those assets? What is the company pursuing through these assets? So once we understand the risks, then we can do a good RCM analysis, because RCM analysis is all about understanding the mission of the asset, which is the functions of the asset, and then understanding the risks that those failures that the asset can have will pose, upon the company's goals. So to start, we need to be aware, very aware of goals. What are we pursuing with those assets? Then when we are able to identify how these failures can curtail, some benefits that the company is getting out from the assets, we will be able to do a better design. Sometimes a decision like, do I have a backup unit or not? It can't be done only on economical terms from acquisition, type of thinking. So let's think about downtime. So let's think about risk on your personnel. Let's think about the regulations. So let's think about maintainability. That you speak a lot about maintainability and with LoRa and with all those analyses. So this has to be taken into consideration when we do the RCM analysis. So this is a game changer now. And the thing is that I was telling you that RCM was blamed for many let's say, applications. People applied it across the board to all the assets, and people got overwhelmed with RCM at some point. But there are things that come all together. So risk analysis. We don't apply RCM to every asset. So we have to do an asset criticality assessment before even thinking about RCM. I'm a pharma guy. I spent a lot of years in the pharma industry. I worked for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, Bristol Myers, AbbVie, the giants, the US giants. And they developed some good guides, manuals for applying all these tools like asset management, RCMs. And they say that in one of the ISPE, ISPE stands for International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineers. So in their manual, they say, in your project phase, they have a different, I would say like a summarized view of the life cycle. They have it in 3 steps. First one is the project phase. Project includes the conceptualization, design, and let's say startup, like installation and validation. The second is operation and maintenance, operation. And the third one is disposal. So they summarize it in 3 steps, and they do it very well. In that first stage, which is the project, they establish that during the design, during the conceptualization and design, you have to do an asset criticality analysis of the whole facility that you are designing. Then you have to do all the abilities analysis, maintainability, cleanability, operability, and you know about that. You're laughing because you know about that. You have done it. You have done it. You've been there. You have done that.
Stuff I get to play with.
So, and there, and there is something, Lucas, that is in the papers, but most people don't do it. It is in the papers, it is there in the instructions, but when we do an RCM analysis at the operational stage, the first thing that I ask for is, let me see the asset criticality analysis that you did in the project phase, and let me see the first RCM analysis that was done. That doesn't exist. Then when you do the asset criticality analysis, they have a kind of a decision diagram that is a quick one, telling you what kind of maintenance you have to apply to this and that asset based on criticality.
Right.
There are 5 levels of criticality, ranging from 1 to 5, and level 4 and 5 criticality assets, they demand RCM to be applied to those. So all those assets your company depend heavily on to attain the goals of the corporation have to be, heated with RCM.
Right.
Then with levels 2 and 3, you do some other FMEA, or you can use what we call the quick maintenance type of analysis, which is a kind of RCM light type of analysis, but still you don't have to do with all the rigor of RCM. Then for level 1, you may decide to have just a checklist or a run to failure type of approach. So that is, after you do that ACA, which is the asset criticality assessment, you know already which assets should you go with RCM. And that is a game changer, because now you don't have to across the board, apply RCM to every assets. Your team won't get overwhelmed of doing over analysis, and now it will be less work to do, and more you will get more results, better results, because we are thinking the asset management way.
Mm-hmm.
We want to take the most out of our assets,
Mm-hmm.
And yes, that very first RCM analysis, that is not going to be the final one. That's done at the design stage. You haven't had any operational experience with it. You haven't had any problems with it, any operation. You don't know who's going to operate it at that point, but you do know a lot about risks.
Right.
And that preliminary RCM analysis is very, very important, and it is rarely done. You almost never see it happening. Look.
Yeah, the criticality piece to me was I saw the same thing. That's the one thing I saw that was missing the most was, it's the same problem with LoRa. People will say, oh, well, I can't possibly do all that analysis because look at the size of this asset. I'd be here forever. And I'm like, you don't need to do the analysis on every system. In fact, you should not do the analysis on every system. And in the military, at least in many of my recent programs, we've had mission essential or mission essentiality codes, or mission essential functions, and they basically identify which functions and which systems carry those functions, so that they mandate analysis on those systems. And that's where the reliability engineers tend to spend all, if not most of their time, is on those mission essential systems. And I've always wondered, from an equipment, so when you're in the design phase and you're doing RCM, and I think a lot of times people associate RCM strictly with the maintenance side of RCM, right?
And it is because of the name,
right?
Reliability Center Maintenance.
Right.
And the maintenance name resonates, and people think that RCM is just for getting maintenance tasks,
right?
And it is not only for maintenance tasks. You get, other than that, you get redesign type of tasks. And redesign doesn't mean only changing the machine or changing the programming of the machine. It is also identifying bad practices that we want to change, and improving maintainability. So you're supplying the better tools to your people to do the job, to reduce that maintainability time. Also improving your procedures. Sometimes we have vague procedures, telling nothing about the people, and they have to interpret how to do it and use their own judgment. So you want to reduce that, and RCM produces all that. So also RCM improves people knowledge on the equipment.
Yeah.
And if you use a multidisciplinary team approach, everybody learns from the others.
Absolutely.
And that very first RCM analysis at the design stage is really important. And let me tell you something, Lucas. If we were to do the RCM analysis in the design stage, we should avoid the disconnect that we very often have between operation and design people. We have very good designers, in the industry, very good engineers, but there is no way they can do a good design if they don't get in touch with the people out there.
Right.
The maintainers, the maintenance engineers, the process engineers out there, speaking to those designers about the pitfalls, the struggles they have every day. I remember in the 90s, when I was working for Pfizer, some of my colleagues were sent to central engineering and to do some help, to help the designers, and they brought with them all their experience. So don't use this type of mechanical field in this application. Change this in your design. Why is that? It is causing a lot of downtime there. So change this valve. We want to use a different valve. So be aware of having like some tools, like we need a stair here, we need a platform there to do the maintenance. We need to have some aids, around the design for us to do better job when we do the maintenance. And these guys from maintenance engineers and maintenance technicians will expand, the effectiveness of that equipment being designed, and will also add a different, tremendous perspective to the designers. And very often, Lucas, I see a disconnect between those designers, engineers, and the engineers in the floor working, day in and day out. But the few times that I have seen the synergy, the results, have been astonishing. Very good results. Wow. I had the opportunity to work in a couple of startups. When we were starting new buildings. So and in one of them, some of my colleagues, process engineers and maintainers, helped, contributed in the design. there were minor hurdles when starting up that the building. In others, we have a lot of struggles because
Mhm.
when there is a disconnect, a lot of things, undesirable things happen.
Well, I like that you bring that up, if you don't mind me interjecting for just a second, because I think RCM gets this bad rap sometimes, where it's like, well, we're not going to invest in that, and they disregard it early in the life cycle, but they're buying the headache once it's in service, right? And if they had invested in doing the RCM when they were either designing the system or designing the component or selecting equipment or whatever the case is, they're putting this new system together, they would have avoided a lot of that disruption when it matters most. They're looking at the cost of the acquisition, but what they're failing to recognize is the weight of that against the cost of loss of operations once it's in service.
Yeah, and if you bring those service people that they go through pain every day, they know when something breaks, how much it costs to the organization. If you bring that knowledge to your design stage, if we're talking about risk, those people down there, they know about risk, and they not only know the equipment when new, but they also know the equipment after 10 years of operations, after 20 years. We have experienced maybe failures that you never thought about them when designing, that happen down the road 20 years later. All that knowledge, that is a treasure that had to be has to be taken up to the design level, to the design engineers. And I've seen when that synergy happens, we have the best designs out of those efforts. So
I like that you bring that up, because people say, oh, well, if it's, why would, look at who's actually doing this stuff. That tells you a lot about why it's important. Like I work with submarines, and before I worked with submarines, I worked with Army landing craft. And before I worked with Army landing craft, I worked with Coast Guard ships. And there's something they all have in common. They leave the shore and they go off to do a mission, and they're very limited in resources, and stuff is expected to operate. And, no one likes failure. I don't care if you're working in a manufacturing plant or on a military ship, but there's something about the criticality of functions when you're in a time or in an operating mode that is dangerous, right? And so if you look at the people that are actually practicing this, it's like, why, there must be something to this. There's got to be some value to this. I mean, we go as far, like it was mind blowing to me to see the way they do this for some of the submarines. And even though when you're inside, you're critical of the processes, from the outside, when you look at it, you go, wow, we do a lot more analysis and work on this than a lot of other people do. But it's because the threshold for failure is, or the appetite for failure is so low. You cannot, you can't experience that failure. And so people that aren't in that environment, I think they underestimate how much they appreciate the same thing. They will say, well, we're not as critical as that. We're not in the same operating environment. No one's shooting at us. We don't need to worry about wartime operations. But then ask them in the next breath, well, what's keeping you up at night? And they'll tell you all the failures that are occurring in their plant that are eating their budget or consuming their unplanned manpower, and their perceived instability of system design or whatever. It's the same. To me, it's the same thing. It's just that their perspective is different because their environment's different.
Yeah, there are different type of risks, and we need to bring on board those people, understanding them. And yes, we need to prioritize. So there are different type of risks and different type of processes we can use to evaluate them. And nowadays, if we don't if we don't incorporate into our operations those practices, asset management practices, risk management practices, we will end up, spending a lot of resources, a lot of money, and at the end we will get less from our assets. And yes, it is good that nowadays there is a lot of good information, and the information is available. There are so many good consultants and colleagues up there, spreading the good news of asset management, the good practices that shouldn't be negotiated. And we are fortunate, to live in these times. There is so much information available. I remember, Lucas, back in the 90s, when I started doing vibration analysis and PDM in 1991, when I graduated from school. And the first time I said in the company that I worked for doing predictive maintenance, an old guy corrected me, told me, "Hey, kid, it is not predictive. We say here preventive maintenance." So we don't live in those times anymore. So nowadays, the information is out there. People know the predictive maintenance is important, that it doesn't have to be proven anymore. We have a lot of tools at our disposal. The thing is that there are many loose efforts. Some people do RCA here, others do RCM. They don't know, when to use one or the other, and we have to get aligned. We have to get organized. So, and asset management is the kind of what unites everything together. And we need to understand how to use things, how to use every process, and at the right time.
See,
And
I think,
right at the beginning, asset criticality analysis, all the ability analysis have to be done together with the project.
right.
If we speak about design for reliability, that's another, topic that is extensive,
gosh.
but it is at that stage when you are doing your design for reliability that you do the very first RCM analysis, and you
Right.
do also the maintainability analysis. And I can bring here somebody to speak about it. It's right here with me. It's Lucas. So there are many things that we can. The theme is really extensive.
Yeah.
And but it is so extensive that people get confused.
Well, I was
And
going to say, I think that deters a lot of people.
yes, it is like everything, ends up with an M. You have PM, you have PDM, you have RCM, you have AM, FM. Everything is failure mode. Asset manager, everything. Even the radio, AM, FM, everything. Ends with an M.
Those are my
And people,
initials, LCM.
yeah. And people get confused, and they don't know where, in which occasion to use one or the other. I was once in Spain delivering a class, and I recommend you to go and do classes in Spain. It's a beautiful country and beautiful people.
I would love to.
and also food. And I was doing my class in the Basque country, in the north part of Spain. Nice area, nice people.
Beautiful.
And I used to go before the pandemic many times, 2-3 times a year. I've been doing that for the last 8 years or so. So one guy was at the class and told me, "Jesus, I want you to go to my plant." And as a hook, he told me, "Jesus, I live in this area of Spain that I know that there are a lot of castles, and I wish, take you around." I said, "Oh yes, why not? Let's go there."
Yes.
So when I visited his plant, he told me, "I want you to apply RCM. I want a proposal for you to apply RCM to this valve." The valve wasn't bigger than my hand. I have
You're
big
like, hold on,
hands,
let me
but
do your analysis.
I have big hands, but the valve was this size, and he told me, "Jesus, can you apply RCM to this, because I have problems?" Then I told him, of course, in Spanish. I will try to translate. I told him, "You are using a war tank to kill a mosquito."
That's right. That's right.
So
Sledgehammer to kill us.
Yeah. So I did my best, translation. So you're using a tank, a war tank, which is RCM, which is for taking down risks this big. Of course, you're gonna kill the mosquito, of course. But
Yep.
what you have to do here is to do an RCA analysis, very targeted to this situation,
Right.
and start with the provider, the manufacturer of that valve to see if you got it for the application is the right one. So maybe it is wrongly applied. Maybe it wasn't sized correctly yet, and maybe you have a material type of problem, and you don't have to apply RCM to this.
Right.
So the thing is that everything ends with an M, and the jargon is very extensive.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to do better, Lucas. We as consultants, and we need to do better at explaining, the reach of our tools, the reach of the
Right.
processes, so people have a kind of a roadmap, where to use this, when to use that, and people, the community, our community will do better. And
So,
yes, that experience has blew my mind because
yeah.
people, I want to do RCM. And I remember another company, I want to do RCM, Jesus, we need to do RCM. That was in another country. And I asked them, do you have a CMMS, working well here? Computer maintenance management system working well? No, we don't have that. Do you have a formal EM program, preventive maintenance? No, we don't. So there
Let's
is a
start
lot.
there.
Yeah, there is a lot of things we have to do before even thinking about predictive, about RCM. There are some foundations that we need to put in there, in order to sustain all the other stuff that comes later. And that's the message we have to spread, my friend.
Yeah.
Lucas.
It's I love that story because I had a similar situation happen with the Army when they had paid us to do RCM. I mean, we're talking about designing a ship, so there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff here, and so we go through all these. We did all these FAMICAs, and we're analyzing the life out of these critical systems, and we're getting down to the nitty gritty. And they said, how many parts are we going to need to provision for this platform? And so we go gather all the failure data and all the recommendations and stuff. And we said, all right, here's your number. And they looked at it and they said, well, you told us there was going to be 10,000 times that many parts on this ship or whatever. And I said, yeah, if you look at every single part on the ship, if you wanted to buy every single part of the ship, you're looking at, 30 to 40,000 items.
It's like having another ship into pieces there.
Yeah. And they said, well, why aren't we provisioning all that? And I said, because you only, you paid us to do this really detailed failure analysis, this RCM, and we go through the process of doing all this RCM, and we tell you exactly what you should plan on procuring to keep your maintenance program alive and keep your corrective maintenance in check. And you just want to go buy a whole nother ship anyways? Why did you pay us to do all this analysis? And so it was a bit back and forth because they just didn't understand what they had hired us to do. They knew that doing RCM was smart. They knew that it was the right thing to do. They knew they had to do it. There was no way they were going to get their acquisition approved. But when it came down to talking to them about using the results of the RCM, and we said, well, here's your maintenance programming, and here's what the training should look like for the vessel, and here's what your training center needs to consider teaching your skilled tradesmen. Oh, and by the way, here's all the parts that we're sending over the fence to provisioning because of the known failure rates. They were just floored. They didn't believe that they were going to get away with buying that small a quantity of parts. And I told them, Congratulations. That's what happens when you incorporate reliability and maintainability properly into your design. You should have less stuff to buy. You should have less failure.
Sure. I remember, and you remind me my days in the pharma industry. I was in charge of preventive and predictive maintenance for a couple of chemical plant buildings, and at the same time, I was in charge of scheduling maintenance, scheduling, and the spare parts room. And when I was in the spare part room, it was where I lost all my hair. No, it was headache, and yeah, I kind of aged like 3 years in one. So yeah, spare parts is a headache. That is really painful.
It's expensive.
Thing is that people think that you have to have everything in there. I had equipment pedestals. I had equipment frames. It's like, Lucas, is like your wife or your brother tells you, Lucas, buy a column of your house and put it in stock, because at some point a column is gonna fail. Or bring a beam of your house and put it in stock, and we will have it. And you know what happens? That in 20 years you don't use it.
That's right.
And you end up, then like triggering a work to change it because you have it there. And when you try to change the column of your house or your beam, then you end up breaking another thing, another beam or another thing. So you are creating problems. And this is one of the beauties of RCM. When RCM was first applied to the Boeing 747 design, it reduced the amount of work, PM work, by how much? By 85%.
See?
So people were doing 85% less work. Now they were safer, less accidents. Now they had a less expensive operations and optimal operations because they reduced the amount of, let's say, failure-induced tasks.
Right.
A lot of over-maintenance produces a lot of failures. I always tell people, I can't help it, I'm a pharma guy, I grew up in the pharma industry. I compare maintenance to medicine. So maintenance is good, yes, it is good. Medicines are good, yes, they are good if you need them. If you start taking pills that you don't need, you will get sick. Maintenance tasks are like that. If you need them, they are good. If you don't need them, they will make you sick. So if you are overdoing maintenance, you are inducing failures. Right. Yeah, and that was what the aviation industry discovered. Over maintenance is killing not only the budget, but it is prompting failures. Out of nowhere, you're getting failures after doing an overhaul. That is shameful. That is shameful. Statistics, show that most of the downtime that companies get, after a year of a shutdown, are very close to starting. So like 80% of the time lost, production time lost, happens in the first weeks of startup, and then you wait for another year to have another overhaul. Why doing overhauls so often?
Yeah.
The plant was running. The plant was running okay. Then we stopped it for a shutdown, and then we have a problems. Eating up our budget. So I liked, that blew my mind when I started reading about RCM. I remember when I was in a job interview. It was in 1993. So before we even had the RCM standard, the SIJ 1011, there were people curious about RCM in the manufacturing industry. And my boss told me, what has been your experience? Asked me, well, I do PM and PDM. He told me, have you heard about RCM? They said, no. He spoke to me about RCM. And he told me what was RCM about. And what blew my mind was when he told me, you achieve more by doing less. And I was a pretty young guy. I was used to do long shutdowns and do a lot of work and it was fun to me. It was okay, the fun is gonna be over. We will be doing less work. so, but I didn't understand that I will get more fun, by doing the analysis.
Yeah.
By feeling good about, reducing risk levels.
Yeah.
By feeling good about getting better results. And if my organization does better, I'm going to do better as an employee of that organization. The community is going to do better. We will have less environmental type of situations, accidents, risks. So everybody's going to do better. So everybody's going to be okay. That blew my mind, Lucas.
Yeah.
When I heard that by doing less maintenance, you will achieve better results. But I was a very curious guy at the time. Maybe I am still today. But then I asked myself, like everybody else here will be asking, our audience, how in the heaven we are going to get better results if we do that? If our generation has been told work hard to achieve results, and now out of a sudden they say do less, and you will how does that doesn't add up? That doesn't
well,
that doesn't make sense. But the thing is that we are going to do the right thing.
Yeah, you're trading one thing for another. Yeah.
So the new maintenance tasks will have two important characteristics. The first one is that they will be technically feasible. So they will be, they are going to be designed for, let's say, solving a problem, designed for avoiding certain type of failure. The second one is that they are targeting specific root causes. Right. So you have to be knowledgeable about and the third thing is that they are going to be prioritized according to the consequences.
Right.
Sometimes you do nothing, because if you do something, you are kind of adding expenses that you don't need. So you can do things that are more expensive than the failure itself.
Yeah.
So all of those resources we have, at our disposals when we do RCM. We can do condition monitoring, we can do time-based, we can do detection, we can do nothing. We can improve the design, and we'll achieve better. We will achieve better.
See, those criteria to me are synonymous with what type of analyst you want, right? So I think one of the biggest problems that I've seen with RCM is people say, well, we tried RCM and it didn't work for us. It didn't turn out the results we expected. And then you start to dig in and you find out that they had the wrong people doing the analysis. They didn't understand.
You have been reading lately, right?
Yeah, a little bit. For those that aren't familiar, he may have written a book.
Yeah. That's in the introductory chapters. You are.
Yeah. So, we in both my MTA class and my LoRa class, I dedicate one slide to choosing the right analyst, because I was working on a project that'll remain nameless to protect the innocent, and there were pressures to hire certain people to be analysts, and I'd say I can't possibly use this person. They're an electrician. And they'd say, what's wrong with that? Well, we're asking them to analyze a diesel engine.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand why that's a problem. Well, would you want the diesel mechanic to analyze your power grid? No, if you're going to use someone for their, to understand what's technically feasible, to understand the criticality of a parts failure mode and its results.
Understand what's going on with the asset. Because
Yeah.
there is an operating context. You may be an expert of diesel engines, stationary engines, but not in the sea.
That's right.
Not out there. So there is an operating context that
Huge.
the analysts have to be aware about, have to be knowledgeable about.
It's huge.
And there are a couple of factors hindering companies to obtain the most value out of the RCM analysis. And there is a brief story there in the introduction chapter, and that happened. That actually happened. Thing is that of course we reserve the names and stuff, right? So it's like in the movies, you say that the characters and the places and the names of the people were changed, So that actually happened. So there was a company, and we're not talking, about any kind of company. We're talking Fortune 100 companies.
Right.
So company that are prestigious companies. So they hired an engineer, recently graduated, and there are a lot of brilliant guys. If you don't remember any formula, any concept of engineering, speak to those guys. They will tell you. Sometimes, Lucas, I'm doing a class, and there is an integral in there, and there is this recently graduated engineer, and tell me, Jesus, you forgot the DT after the integral, the last part. You forgot the limits of integration. You have to put them there, because then it doesn't make sense if you don't do that. I said, yeah, I used to put them 30 years ago, but now I miss them.
And you tell them you forgot who's teaching.
Yeah. So what happened to this company? They used a new engineer to do RCM to the critical assets with the company mechanics alone. So the guy was brilliant. So they gave him a book, start reading this amazing book. Can you see it?
There you go, Mowbray. Yeah.
So use this book, read it, discuss it with you guys. I have every RCM book here, not only ours, mine and James' book. I have everybody else. I learned from everybody. So the guy started studying. He was brilliant. He put together a procedure and started doing an FMEA with his coworkers, his mechanics. So they put together a new maintenance plan. They rolled out the plans, and applied them for 3 years. And when they measure the results, the good thing about projects we do is that at the end we're going to be measured by the results.
That's right.
So with the success of a project, it's against it's going to be judged against the expectations that you have.
That's right.
If you met the expectations, there is success. If not, there is something else. So something else happened here. So they things didn't change. Same failure rates, same downtime, same type of pitfalls, and same type of wastes. Everything's remained the same. Then they called us to do some kind of an audit. Let's do an audit and see what happened here. We found a couple of common pitfalls that happen very often while applying RCM. The first one is not using an experienced facilitator. So you need to have somebody that is knowledgeable not only about RCM, somebody who has a facilitation skills, that can help the group to come into an agreement. There will be disagreements. There will be discussions. You need to close them, and you not only close them, make them agree, and apply those skills. Secondly, somebody knowledgeable about engineering and maintenance.
Yeah.
To help the group. You don't have to be, as a facilitator, the expert with that asset that you are analyzing, but you need to have engineering knowledge, maintenance and reliability knowledge to guide the group to select the right tasks, the right frequencies for the task, and so forth. And that guy has to be stick to an agenda and to a objectives. All the RCM analysis must have objectives, clear objectives. Understand what is going on, what is the current situation, and where do we want to go. So they lacked all that. Secondly, no multidisciplinary approach. RCM is all about understanding risks, and maintenance alone doesn't have the whole idea of the risks in a company. Right. That was a pharma company. There are quality issues. There are a production type of issues. There could be design issues. And we need, a multidisciplinary team which is knowledgeable with the asset and the process with different perspectives. So we should have an EHS guy in there, and environmental health and safety guy there, and a couple of guys, that can help us to bring, risk types, bring events, posing risks. So that they didn't have a team to start. They didn't have a multidisciplinary team. Thirdly, poor failure mode causes causation. So if you don't, RCM is all about bringing all the potential causes, that prompting, failures and, right. and also affecting the company goals. If we don't, define the causes in such a way that we can find later on a policy for, taking those risk levels to tolerable levels, we are totally lost. And if you, for instance, take a look at the RCM J8 and standard, it says that the root causes, the failure causes should be described in such a manner that a task can be assigned to them. If I said to you, for example, Lucas, the coupling broke or the engine broke. Well, the engine has so many parts.
Well, go fix it.
What kind of task you're going to implement for such a vague type of description?
Yeah.
So
just overhaul
it. Things like that happen very often. So, and you see that this part broke, this part broke, this part broke. And there are many interesting things, Lucas, when you get into a subject, when you start studying something, a subject like RCM. If you look into the RCM standard, it says, avoid to use the word broke when describing failure modes. Don't even use the word failure. Tell how it may fail.
Right.
Corrosion. What else? It could be corrosion, erosion. It could be a short circuit. It could be many what we call failure mechanisms. Yep. So speak to me in terms of failure mechanisms. So tell me how it could fail and why it could fail. So those aspects of RCM are very important for success. So this initial project for that company lack of all that. And many other things, like if you see, for example, an RCM analysis, and all that is recommended is maintenance. That means that there are two fundamental things that were not evaluated. So if you look into the, I'm not speaking about RCM-R yet. I'm speaking about RCM, the fundamentals of RCM. If you go and take a look into the RCM standard, it says that you have to evaluate 3 different types of failure modes. The first one is natural or normal wear and tear. Because we know that things, if you have a bearing failing and it was installed for 40 years, don't do it, an intensive root cause analysis, it failed because, of age.
Old.
No. Age type. It was old, yes.
Yeah.
So don't do, don't overthink it. But if it is failing after 6 months of installation, something other than age went wrong with that. So there are 3 types, and we will be naive if we are going to think that everything is going to fail by age. And you see Lucas RCM analysis basing all the failures on age. Everything
Really?
fails by age. Oh yeah, that's more common than what you will
See, that's surprising
want
to me.
to be. Yeah, because with time, the tenets of RCM have been kind of distorted. People now go the easy way. Let's think that everything fails by age, and you tell me how long this is gonna last. And now you're telling me what, 10 years? And you, how much you say? I say 5. Then the average is 7.5. Let's use 7.5.
Yeah, just write it down.
Yes. Then when you understand what is actually happening, when you do a viable analysis, the thing is failing, let's say randomly or prematurely, and things are happening differently than what we had in mind. So this is happening. And when you see that only maintenance tasks are assigned and not redesigned, we are ruling out 2 important types of failure modes, which is design flaws.
So what?
You may have design flaws.
Oh, design flaws. Gotcha.
Design flaws.
Yep.
So you may have the best design in the world, and once in a while you will find a flaw here and there. And at the operational stage, we're working with equipment that was designed many years back, and maybe the operational context have changed a bit.
Yep.
And the design now is facing a different type of environment. So we have to look into that. We have to look for failure modes that are due to design flaws, and those are not fixed with maintenance tasks.
Right.
Thirdly, and our friend Bob, he is gonna love this one, Bob Latino. Human errors.
Yes.
Human errors. So I'm not going to enter into that because Bob is going to jump in and give us a lecture on that. But we have to take into account that errors happen.
Yes.
Mistakes, operational mistakes, maintenance mistakes. That means that we have to look into our practices, procedures, tools that we provide to our people, and we can't overlook that. We have to evaluate as well. And who said that? The standard. Because the people writing the standard were smart enough to understand that failures don't occur only by age.
Right. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, most failure don't occur by age.
Yeah.
So and that is something that when you have a good facilitator and a multidisciplinary team will bring to the team all those things happening day in and day out. Yes, we remember that we have documented some failures that we have here. This part was installed wrongly because we didn't have the procedure. So you have to work on that. If you don't expect that part to fail by age if you install it wrongly. So we have to tackle all of those things when doing RCM. And the problem is, Lucas, that RCM is related only to maintenance. People think that maintenance are the responsible to doing RCM.
Right.
And I will tell you something, Lucas. The person responsible for requesting that RCM be applied to assets is the owner of the asset. If I'm the owner of a critical asset, I will reach out to the reliability department or to anybody. I need an assessment to my equipment, to my asset. it's like when you own a car, you are responsible for not to perform the maintenance, but you are responsible for, getting the proper maintenance to your car or your house. So the asset owner bears a lot of responsibility, and these are the changes that the asset management is bringing, to the table right now. So there is a shared responsibility here, and there is a multidisciplinary team approach that we need to bring on board, because it is no longer what the asset is what the asset does. It is the risk that, opposed to that doing the asset has to perform that really matter here. So this is a game changer. Asset management and the risk management approach are bringing a different perspective, and we need to align to it.
Well, that's one of the things I think that RCM, if you could take a moment to explain the difference between RCM and RCM-R, because I'll be 100% honest with you. When I first met you and I heard that you had a book named RCM-R, I was like, what does the R stand for? And I see it and I said, re-engineered. What was wrong with the original? And then but I'm smart enough to keep my mouth shut so I don't get slapped. So I sat back and said, I need to get smarter about this. What is the difference between RCM-R and RCM? And immediately I was like, yes, this is exactly what you should be doing. You have to bring these things together. So if you could just talk about the difference between the two.
Yes, let's say that there is no 2 or 3 different types of RCM. There is only one RCM.
Right.
So RCM-R, what it does is that it has, let's say, 5 pillars. And the most important one is RCM. So we don't deviate, by any means from the tenets of RCM. We want to answer the 7 questions. We want to do it the right way. So what triggered RCM-R was really the pitfalls that we observed. Let's see how we can help people to do the original RCM the right way. So that triggered RCM-R. What I will tell you, RCM-R is a process to develop failure consequence management policies like RCM, but the difference is here is embedded into the asset management world. So in here we are, taking into consideration all the asset management concepts and also the risk management concepts. We have 5 pillars. The first one is RCM, of course. We have the pillar of data integrity. We have observed the following, Lucas. RCM now is just done with the opinion of people. And I understand that opinions are good to have, especially if they are based on data.
It's hard to say that after 2020, isn't it?
Yeah.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Nobody saw it coming. So if you can base your opinions on data, that's okay. I will be very comfortable with that. But when you do an RCM analysis, the guy from production tells you one thing, the designer tells you other, the maintenance tells another story. Who's right? Who's wrong?
Right.
Bring me data.
Bring me data. Show me the numbers, man.
Yeah. Show me the money. That's the first. And you know what? RCM in the beginning was applied with data. What the aviation industry did was, let me analyze all the failures coming from the insurance, industry. Let's understand the distributions. Let's see, when to apply this type of maintenance, when to apply that type of maintenance. Nowadays, RCM is kind of a joke. It is based on what's your opinion.
That's one of the things that scared a lot of people away from RCM at first. I remember when we were first looking at what the aviators were doing, and we were like, whoa, we that sounds like a lot of work to get that data, and the data we have, we don't really trust. So you know what? We'll just wait this one out.
Yes, and that's the first thing. If you are at the operation stage, you know, because
Yeah.
maybe at the design stage you don't have operational data. Maybe you have the experience from other users, and that's the best you can do, and that's good. That's good enough, you know, to improve your design. But when you are at the operational stage of the life cycle, you are data rich.
Yeah.
If you have gathered it correctly, right, you are data rich. Use that data.
Right.
So RCM-R is about using data to back up your opinions. Opinions are accepted based on data. Second, then we have indicators as part of the KPIs. What kind of KPIs? ramp type of KPIs: availability, reliability, maintainability. We need to understand how the equipment, the system as a whole is performing. If we have, sometimes you ask people, what is your reliability or availability goal? I don't know. Do you measure it? No, we don't do it. So you need to have a kind of KPI that, you know, can tell you broadly how the things are going on. So we use those type of KPIs, ramp type of KPIs, and we teach people how to use them, how to calculate your MTBF, how to calculate your MTTR, your availability, how to track it, etc. How to do maintainability analysis based on those parameters, and so forth. Fourth, we use viable analysis, failure data analysis. So if you have failure data, why not using it?
Yeah. And why?
Let's go back to the basics. Yeah. Let's see. Those people in the aviation industry were very successful. Yeah. Let's understand what they did. And I was speaking at a conference once, and I was speaking about Weibull, and somebody told me, "But Jesus, aren't you an RCM guy? What are you doing with Weibull?" I said, "You know, back in the 60s and the 70s, these guys applying RCM use Weibull too."
Yeah.
If they speak about a conditional probability of failure, it is because they did a Weibull analysis.
That's right.
And they knew what they were talking about.
Yes.
So I don't conceive a reliability or RCM practitioner without understanding the statistics, you know. And why Weibull? I will answer that question for you. Mm-hmm. You know, Weibull analysis is intended to specific failures.
Right.
To specific failure modes. You know, RAM analysis is let's say that it is a device a telescope that you use to have a broad view and to have an idea. And Weibull is a microscope. You go to the, you know, to the small piece, to the small part, and you understand how that small part failed. Mm-hmm. If it fails randomly, what are you doing? Why are you doing time-based tasks to random failures? Mm-hmm. If it is failing prematurely, why you have to redesign? You have to improve your skills. You are provoking those failures, your practices. So there is something wrong with the design. So data speaks, you know, volumes, and we don't pay attention to it.
Right.
And the fifth, let's say, of those pillars is continuous improvement.
Yes.
Things change with time.
If
nothing changed with time, look at your hair. If you think that nothing changed, look at your chin, look at your mustache, look at the color of your hair. Yeah. The same thing happens to your assets. Mm-hmm. They age with time. And we have different failures at different ages. Same thing with the asset. Yeah. So if nothing else changes, the asset is going to change by itself. It's going to be older.
I love the focus on continuous improvement. It's one of the things I harp the most, because there is no perfect system, there is no perfect design, there is no perfect person, there is no perfect, like, absolutes to me are just an insanity. Like, I don't believe that you can ever really be done with these things, and they can be good enough, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, you know, you have to be striving for the greatest you can possibly be at all times, but you know, not being focused on continuous improvement in something as rigorous as RCM, to me, is a massive weakness. So I'm glad you really focus on that.
So I think that what we did with RCM-R is, let's focus on the asset management concepts. Let's understand why RCM, you know, is not working for some people, and let's try to bridge that gap, you know, with some aids. And still, you know, there are a lot of details that differentiate RCM-R from the standard RCM. For example, we provide tools, and we use other ISO standards to help people, for example, produce better failure modes. How to define a failure mode? Because the standard explain it to you, but people need more information to do it better. And let's, for example, understand how to do a risk analysis, how to, for example, use MICA instead of FMEA, how to add criticality. So in a way that it makes a sense for the company, you know, and let's speak about risk, and the mechanic understands the importance of applying the right torque to this bolt, because if we over torque it, it is not only the cost of the bolt, but we have to stop the whole line.
That's right.
And it is gonna cost a $50,000 per hour, and that is painful. So let's them understand how important is to torque correctly, right? So and yeah, those type of things we're bringing on board. So the multidisciplinary team. Another thing that we are bringing on board, Lucas, that sometimes may be kind of weird for others, is we're bringing on board the operator tasks into our decision diagram. And why the operator?
Yeah, you should.
Why?
They've got a tremendous influence on the machine.
When we are called to do maintenance, the machine is already stopped.
Yeah.
It's off. We didn't see any symptom. The operator was there. He was smelling the smoke. He or she was
feeling the flames.
Yeah, he or she were there feeling the heat, the noise. All that is recorded right here.
That's right.
So why not involving them in doing some minor maintenance tasks? Why not keeping them close to the machine? And why not having them transmitting that knowledge to the team? So in our decision diagram, the operator tasks are there included.
I love that. I love that. And so it gives me it reminds me of when I was the lead machinery technician in the engine room on a ship, and they would only wake me up at night if something was really wrong, right? So they wake me up one night, they're kind of panicking. And I said, what's going on? They said, we had to shut the #1 ship service generator down, this big diesel that produces power for the ship. We had to shut it down because of an unusual noise and vibration, which is like one of the worst casualties you can have in an engine of that size by the book. So I go down there and I said, wow, you guys really look bothered. You know, they all look scared, like they're all white. And I said, go ahead and start it. I want to see it run. I want to see what's going on. And they were like, I said, why not? They said, you do not want to start the engine. And I said, was it that bad? And they said it was that bad. I said, all right, now I definitely want to hear it. Fire it up. And we start it, and it's purring like a kitten. Nothing wrong. And they all had this like look of disbelief. But then out of nowhere, this hellacious metallic sound comes screaming out of the engine. and it sounded like the earth was opening up, and like, shut it down. So we shut the engine down. And the only reason I bring that up is my perception as a person who lived with this thing all day. I had never experienced what the operator had experienced in the moment of their casualty, right? So I couldn't understand why, I couldn't really understand the nature of the casualty, the nature of the report, how to troubleshoot anything until I could relate to what the operator was doing. But their input was critical, because if they hadn't have told me, you know, their little story before we got started, I wouldn't have expected what I heard.
There is a trend that is applied in some industries. I'm not saying that we have to do it everywhere. No, I'm just speaking about some instances where you have operators that are also mechanics or electricians, technicians, operator. Oh man, that's a success. I remember applying RCM in a plant that was in northern Mexico, and I said, I need a representative from the operation side and another one from the maintenance side. I'm saying one person here. I'm both.
Yeah.
I'm the operator and I'm the electromechanic. I do the electrical and mechanical part of it. And the guy was in charge of operating and also fixing and doing the PM. And that's the best that could happen.
Yep. That's the military tries that model.
I know that is not applicable everywhere. Right. And that's why we need the multidisciplinary approach. Because maintainers, when we are called, you know, to do a repair, many times the equipment has already shut down.
Yep.
And we don't most of the time the operator experienced, you know, every stage of the failure. It first it started to vibrate, then it got hot like hell. Then it you know, I saw all that oil coming out. So, you know, everything, he has experienced everything that we didn't, you know, and that information is really, really important.
So we have to quantify that fear, right? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how afraid were you when the machine shut itself?
That's why the poor guys told you, no, Lucas, don't.
Yeah, they were like,
no.
Please don't stop. Yeah. That's excellent.
So Lucas, then when we did this audits and saw those gaps, so my team, by that time we were applying to RCM, to a couple of projects in Puerto Rico with my PDM Tech team. And then I was studying my master's in maintenance and reliability engineering, and my master degree project was about, you know, like joining RCM with statistical analysis. Then I got my view expanded. I got, you know, like all the things that were happening at the same time gave me a better focus on what to put together. And with the help of my team of engineers and technicians, we put together the model, the RCM-R model that has it consists of 4 sub-processes. The first one is the process for, we call it the pre-work process, which is to ACA, understand, you know, the importance, the relevance of your assets, then decide on which of them you have to do RCM. Secondly, data integrity. Make sure that you follow the rules, you know, you do all your failure documenting, you have a good asset numbering system, you are doing well with data. Then you do all that is included in the pre-work stage. Then we go to the second stage, which is RCM by the standard. So you do RCM by the standard, but with some help from other standards for helping people to describe better failure modes. It's kind of fine tuning what we do in the normal RCM process. The third of those two processes is the fine-tuning with failure data analysis. Okay, you told me here in question number 6 of RCM, you told me here that we are going to do condition monitoring. Let's see if the data backs up your recommendation. When we do the data analysis, yes, we're having random and wear out failures together. Condition monitoring is the best thing for that. You're recommending here a time base. Okay, let's do the while analysis. We have a beta equals 4. Okay, that's a wear out failure, an acute wear out. So let's use time base. If we have data, we can improve our decision making. That's what we do there. And the fourth of the sub processes is sustaining, okay, implementation and sustaining. And my co-author, James, brought a very broad perspective and an excellent perspective on implementation. So that kind of reinforced all the RCM-R and all the RCM-R perspective that I had. My perspective was more on the doing. Let's do the process. Let's do the process. And James was thinking, let's think about how to sustain, how to get, sustainable results. And he brought a lot of good things and knowledge to the RCM-R, and it was wonderful. So we end up with 4 sub processes, and not only telling our community how to do RCM, but also how to get optimal results and sustainable results. So we end up putting together 3 classes of RCM. The first one is for the fundamentals. Right. Let's concentrate on the fundamentals. It's like when you go to school, you start by first grade, right?
That's right.
You don't speak about graduation, high school graduation yet. Let's concentrate on the fundamentals. Let's learn how to read first.
Okay? That's right.
So we start from the fundamentals. Let's say that your prerequisite for taking the class is being familiar with your assets. Work at a company. Understand your assets. That's it. You go to the class, we'll teach you reliability, RCM, right? The tenets, the basics. There is a second class, Lucas, which is about, we call it RCM-R advanced class. In there, we teach the models, the statistical models. And we call it the fine-tuning of RCM. So let's understand how to do the analysis, the failure analysis. Let's understand also condition monitoring. So we explain the principles of condition monitoring, so people understand how to put together the PF curve, how to calculate the PF, how to calculate the task frequencies. If you're recommending a certain frequency, make sure that you use the right formula for it. There are formulas for everything in reliability, so let's make sure that you're using the right one.
Yes,
and
so many.
yeah, and then we have the facilitator class, in which we teach how to facilitate, how to be the leader of an RCM project, how to conduct the analysis. And also we go more over we stress a lot in the math, reliability math, especially Lucas, for protective devices. We bear a lot of responsibility. When we are talking about protective devices,
yes,
you can't pick the frequencies for a task randomly. You need to be certain of what you do. And the reason for that is because lives depend on those devices. So we stress a lot of emphasis in the facilitator class, and we want to prepare them to understand that role very well.
So your RCM your RCM-R basic course is a prerequisite for all the other courses, right?
Yeah, unless
Unless
the participants bring experience from another RCM type that knows the basics.
right,
They
they've got the
can
fundamentals.
get the fundamentals, know the standard, etc. We can advance them to the second level class, which is the advanced class. So just let us know. Yes, here is my certificate. I took the class, and I know the basics of RCM. You can go to the second class. Yeah, we accept it, and yes, that's the way it is. We bear a lot of responsibility too. So we don't want to certificate people just for fun. I have this nice certificate, and has the signature of Jesus and Lucas Marino. Also, I like him. He's a nice guy. So no. You have to demonstrate your skills, and we will require projects from you to get certified, and we want to be certain that you understand it. And this is assurance, Lucas, for the companies out there. So if they are sending people to learn about RCM, those people, bear a lot of responsibility. They will be dealing with the assets the companies are going to use to reach their goals. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big responsibility, and
It is a lot.
Yeah, we want to make sure that these companies are getting back, the people very well prepared to do it. So that's our commitment, Lucas, and we love what we do. We are very passionate at that. Maybe it has to do with being a Latino. So we are kind of passionate of what we do, and yes, all that hands movement and stuff.
That's right.
So we bring that into our classes. That's part of being a Marino, a Latino, in general. So yes, we besides that, we feel that we have a lot of responsibility and to the reliability community, and this is a serious business.
See, that means a lot because I think when you look at the providers and the trainers and the consultants and all the people that are out there, if you're not familiar with the personalities, then it just looks like a heavily saturated market. Like people like us, we know each other. We know people in industry, so we know who we want, we get along with, who we want to learn from. But if you're someone that's not like heavily embedded in that industry and has some form of relationship with some of the leading trainers and stuff, you'd have a hard time understanding what the difference is between any of them. And I think that one of the benefits of your approach is that it's very systematic and that it's very personal. I'll put you out for just a second. Don't get mad at me. But when I first met Jesus and we were talking about training, I asked him one time, so how many people have you guys taught? And there's so many. You guys have helped so many people. And immediately I was like, wow, that's really impactful that they've helped that many people. I hope it's not impersonal, right? Because I've seen companies that they get big and then they lose the ability to stay connected with the students. But one of the things that I admired about you guys was you keep your classes so they're not like these, this education mill where we're trying to cram as many students into a class. They're still very tight. They're still very personal. They're still very focused. They're still very, I don't know how to say, you get a lot of interaction and one-on-one time. And that's huge for not only like the process of transferring knowledge to somebody, but you actually get a sense of how well they're working with those fundamentals. The projects that you put in place give them application and give you guys an opportunity to work closely together on you assessing their performance. that's just so much, that's so different than so many of the different models out there. And to give you a comparison, like the MTA class and the LoRa class I have are not that connected with the student because it's not a hybrid and it's not live, right? But the RCM course that you have is still has that really tight connection. I think that's wonderful. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we have a couple of let's say ways of doing it, and we have a hybrid type of model for people that don't have the time to sit, like 16, 18 hours in a live class. What we do there is that we offer 4 lessons, 4 2-hour lesson, and after each lesson, we will give assignments. We will give homework and a project to do, and those guys have a week to continue on their own, on their own pace, and doing the work. And then we go to the second lesson, and we will discuss new topics. And this is good for guys that are very busy. They don't want to interrupt their, work schedule, and they can take the class either early in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening. So, and we also have the live classes. When we have in the 2 modes, we have a lot of interactions, with the
Right.
students, and sometimes when we have private classes, for example, we do private classes for companies like in every industry. Let's say for companies like Ford, for example, we do classes for the Medtronic, Johnson and Johnson. Many companies out there, they tell us, Jesus, I want a class for my group, but that's a closed class. Then we put them to work with their own assets at their own, facilities, and we put them to work as a team. So bring on board some guys from operations, some others from quality control, etc. They will all work together, and we simulate, their day-to-day activities, and that makes, a lot of sense when you are working with your assets, you are working with your environment, and you are simulating the real world RCM analysis, how it is supposed to be done. And afterwards, with the classes, things don't finish, in the class. We still keep in touch with them, and the students, the participants, they render their work. They send, their project for us to review, and we provide feedback to them. And yes, many people go all the way up to the facilitator class, and we keep in touch with them. Some companies even contract us as coaches for their people, for their future facilitators, and we keep in constant contact with them closely. And we have graduated good facilitators from those efforts. And yes, and the thing is that some people, the first one of the keys, Lucas, to be a good facilitator is this one. I haven't told you this one. You have to want to be a facilitator.
That's right. Yes.
You have, sometimes the best guy in the field with the better skills, but the guy is very shy.
They don't want to.
They don't want to speak. They don't want to lead. They don't want a group. No. So those facilitators that are successful, they have to want to be a facilitator. And when you have a facilitator that wants to be a facilitator, and you have a passionate instructor, that is, that is a collision. That is, a tremendous energy together.
Yeah.
And results are good. Results are impressive, and that has been our experience. When people many people get up to the first class because that's all they need and they wanted to know the fundamentals. But most people advancing, taking the most advanced class, is because they want to get some leadership. They want to do RCM on their own, and we help them to do so, to achieve, to those levels, and to obtain results.
That's amazing to me that you guys don't lose sight of that. And just to clarify my earlier comment a little bit, I agree with you. The every learning delivery style or method has its strength and its weaknesses, right? And man, there were some classes I wish I could have just taken an on-demand class and never had to interact with the professor. And it wasn't anything to do with the professor. It's just that the time of the class, or I just wasn't, I started out as a mechanical engineering student, and I had to drop out of mechanical engineering because I was deploying on ships and I couldn't do the lab work. That's just, I can't take the lab with me on the ocean, which was ironic because I was literally living in an engine room. But that's just the way it worked out. And a few, now I teach part-time for ODU as an assistant professor. And it's just phenomenal to me that I get to talk to these students and they have options now, right? Some of them, they prefer to take the pre-recorded classes. I teach a hybrid class right now, which I absolutely love. That's fantastic. And then there's some people that just dyed in the wool. They've got to have that full 100% face-to-face course. So, but being able to offer everything and suit the needs of the community, I think is a strong suit. And it's a compliment to you guys that you keep all of those end users in mind. It's awesome.
Yeah, and yes, there is a lot of satisfaction in doing so, Lucas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, look, this was awesome. I've had so much time. This has been.
I think we've been speaking like for 15 minutes now, Lucas.
It's only been like 20 minutes. We're good. I don't even know how long this video is at this point, but it's I want to say probably almost 2 hours. But
really?
Yeah, that's great, because that means we've got a lot of good stuff to pass to people, and they're going to hopefully want to hear it. So, Jesus, I can't thank you enough for spending your time with us this afternoon. And I'm just excited I feel blessed and I feel honored to be able to work with you. I'm glad you feel the same way, and you don't have to tell me.
No, same here. Look, I feel blessed also to call you my colleague, and even to call you my friend. So
yes, thank you.
So I've learned a lot from you as well. So, and I'm really proud to work with this effort, with this project with you. So anytime.
Yes, sir.
Any moment, you just tell me and we just start speaking and recording.
That's it. We got this.
Yeah, and yeah. We have done it like this. We have done it with beers. We have done it in many modes. So yes. Anytime, my friend.
Well, this is the first time we've done this on a beach, so that's a first.
Oh, yeah. Sure, that's an improvement.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, Jesus. And, just stay tuned, guys. We got a whole lot more coming to you. And again, thank you, Jesus, for spending your time with us.
You're welcome.